Greetings, gamers. Welcome to the chat. All right. Let me know how the audio is. If the game audio is too loud, is the game audio too loud, or can you hear it, or is it too quiet? Is it too quiet? Let's see. How about, let's go up to maybe... Alright, how about that? Is the audio of the game better? Oh, only okay. Let me turn it up some more. I can actually see. Let's go up to 80%. How's that? The stream is 30 or 60 seconds behind, so just making sure the audio is good. It's good. The audio for the game is good. Greetings, gamers! Welcome, welcome, welcome to something very special, very awesome, and that is Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst. This is such an awesome game. I'm so looking forward to this, honestly. Once it'll select ships, that is. So, what's so cool for me about Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst is that it is an old school game that I have played since the early 2000s. It's been around since the late 1990s and has had some iterations. It stopped with its iteration, I think. Let's see, start game. It started with its iterations in 96 or 98. I always forget which one it is. It started on Dreamcast and then moved over to GameCube, PC, Xbox, and then the latest version is Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst, which is the 2005 variation. Today, I'm going to be playing my Eljah character. He's actually supposed to be named Elijah, but I made a mistake a long time ago, so I'm going to call him Elijah. I made a mistake while creating the character. Didn't realize it till long after the point where I could change it potentially. And that's basically it. Now, my character Elijah, he is a level 190. Which is, howdy do, welcome to the chat, Ashton Gamer. Create a party, going to episode 1, Gamerman. And then of course, one person and ultimate registrate. So let's see, I think I'm pretty well mostly ready for the fight. I'm gonna go ahead and go to my bank real quick and take out everything I need for the actual questing today. Attribute Wall we don't need, but I will need Cure Confuse, or Cure Freeze, 2 Heavenly Resists, and Escape Doll. So for the uninitiated, this game is going to be kind of a bit complicated at first. And a lot of the things that I have on offer with this character, or what I'm going to be doing, is likely not going to come across to most players, but it should be a fun time. Basically, this game, in a nutshell, is a take on Monster Hunter. I think before Monster Hunter was ever a thing, long before, maybe. I could be mistaken by that. But it was a take on Monster Hunter, and instead of where you're only going off and fighting like big, huge bosses that take you forever to KO, you have to wade your way through a horde of enemies and fight them, and then go off and fight a boss. Yeah, the old days. Back in the good old days, I had a whole lot of memory cards on my GameCube. And we had everybody, all of our family members, our friends, our neighbors, all had characters on GameCube, and we had a huge PSO community back then. It was big enough it could have been its own server if it wasn't for the fact that, none of it was online for us. We had no idea that online was even a thing at that time for games like this. We're talking, I got the original PSO episode 1 and 2 for GameCube in 2003, I think. This iteration is from 2005. It's the oldest and most up-to-date iteration. You can play on servers that do have modern updates or more modern updates. I am playing on one. And it does change the game from what you would know from back then. They do make some things, but by and large, Phantasy Star Online Blueburst servers all shut down in 2007. So being able to play this game online is kind of miraculous. And that's basically what's going on here, is I'm playing the game online. Without further ado, I think I'm just going to go ahead and go straight into Towards the Future. So Towards the Future is the quest that I am playing today, and I don't really have a good extra drop rate. This server does have events and, extra drop rate, so on and so forth. In fact, there's a Sonic event for the anniversary of this server going on at this moment, which is exactly why you're hearing the Sonic music in the background when I'm in the lobbies. So the cool thing about this game is it's kind of a game you can play completely at your own pace. I've tried getting many people to get into the game, more than not, friends and family, at least as of late, because it's one of those games that you can play as chill or as, difficulty intensive as you want. It's very cool. And because it's so old, extremely old, and it's run on private servers, you don't have to worry about your game systems in any realm, like your PC, because you're not playing this on an actual game system. You have to play it on a PC. You don't have to worry about any of those being up to snuff with this. 2005, if your computer can't run it, you have a computer from, the 90s. No, that was definitely not my own custom music. That was the music from the event. I think the anniversary event is either live or it's going live. Typically, when it does go live, you can get a whole bunch of new and interesting and cool stuff. This character already has Red Ring. Red Ring is what I'm searching for, but I'm not searching it for, no reason. You can sell them because they're one of the most coveted and sought-after items in the game. But also, I have 3 other characters, and all of them want to eventually be able to equip his own Red Ring. And because of that, I am going to be hunting for Red Ring. That's the purpose of this stream and some upcoming streams. I'm probably going to be primarily playing this quest, but I will try to keep it, somewhat fresh by playing other things too at times. But grand scheme of things, this is the best way to get to the boss of this quest. The boss of this quest is the final boss in the first episode, and you absolutely want to fight the final boss of said first episode because he happens to be the boss that has the Rappy here, that has the red ring in question, and that is what I'm hunting for. It's very cool. Yeah, so that is an interesting point to bring out, is that you can find different statistics on some of your items in the game. Typically just barriers and armors. Barriers are like your shields, with which the red ring is a shield. And then your armors, your frames, your chassis system. Those are the only things that really have a variance in stats that you can find. And if you find a max stat red ring, they're one of the most expensive and absolutely ridiculous things to come across. I think the chance of finding a max stat red ring is like 1 in a billion or so. Even though the original chance for finding a red ring period is only a 1 out of 186 chance from the final boss, it's just that varied that it's not likely. I have found 3 or 4 red rings at this point, and each one has been pretty decent. I've sold them for a fair bit of this game's in-game tradable currency. It's called photon drops, and that's pretty cool. But realistically, I'm actually not trying to get a red ring to sell. I just want to find a red ring to add to my collection so that I can have more for my other characters. It is the best barrier in the game. Buffs all of your stats, buffs all of your magical resistances, all that kind of stuff. And I'm playing my favorite character. It's the reason why he's level 190. 190 is pretty darn close to the very end. Very, very end. Level 200 is the final level that you can be in Phantasy Star Online. I would love to do further content on PSO, showcasing quests, side events, all that kind of stuff, and really get into the meat and the thick of the game so that people can see what this game is all about and not just get my, off-the-cuff speaking about this game. Because I'm obviously not going to be able to cover everything on PSO in this stream. It's just not going to happen. It's literally an impossibility. If I cover the bare basics, I'm going to be pretty surprised. Yeah, the price for a red ring is 120. Well, it's actually dependent. If you get a low stat red ring, I think they're only like 50 photon drops. So, like I said, the photon drops are the tradable currency in this game, and it's specifically for trading with players, as well as you can do some quests to trade for some items and things, and that's what sets the base amount of how much photon drops are actually valued at, is what the quests value them at and how often you find them. Those are the two things that determine the value of photon drops. One singular photon drop can get you pretty decent stuff, and a bare basic red ring, basically minimum stat, will get you around 50 photon drops. The maximum red ring will get you around 2,000-ish or more, which is kind of a crazy number, all things considered. So you've already seen me beat the forest, and it only had two areas. Each one of these really only has a couple areas because this is a boss rush quest. This is towards the future. Very, very famous boss rush quest in PSO. And it's just the most efficient way to do this. I'm actually in the caves now, and in the caves you fight Deborah, this boss, so I'm already at the second boss. This is going to be pretty interesting, just how quickly I'm capable of doing this. I can complete each one of these quests in about 20-ish minutes. A little bit less than that, hopefully. Typically around 17 to 20 minutes is my time if I'm speeding through it. And Darrell is Gonzo. Yeah, you are showing some of your knowledge about this game. That's pretty cool. The drop rates for photon drops are 1 in 1,000 from every creature in Ultimate. And I am in Ultimate difficulty. That is the highest difficulty you can play. However, this game actually has difficulties beyond Ultimate. It's in the separate episodes. There's 3 episodes on this game. Episode 1, 2, and 4. There was an episode 3 a long time ago on the GameCube. It was exclusive to the GameCube, and it was just a trading card game version of Phantasy Star Online. I think it was long before they ever came up with the idea of Blue Burst or the PC version having all this really cool and interesting stuff. Yeah, his death animation right there was due to the fact that I killed him mid-animation. So that was pretty hilarious, because you don't typically see that animation, that's for sure. I might end up missing or skipping things at times. Do apologize for all of that, but that's just how that goes. And yeah, photon drops are a 1 in 1,000 drop rate from any creature. And in Ultimate is the hardest difficulty. Episode 1, Episode 2 is harder than Episode 1. And then Episode 4 is harder than Episode 2. The only example of this not being totally accurate is there is actually an area in Episode 2 that is harder than anything in Episode 4. It gets kind of confusing in that matter, but that's because Episode 2 has an area that is full of nothing but mini-bosses. And you typically don't fight a lot of mini-bosses, especially on Episode 1. There are very, very few. Basically, I think maybe one in area. In this area, there is a rocket-launching dude who is extremely deadly, especially on Ultimate. He is the mini-boss here, and I'm going to do my absolute darndest to make sure he doesn't KO me. But yeah, those enemies are extremely dangerous, but I happen to be playing a cast, the Hucast. And the cool thing about the casts is that, oh, I used the wrong trap there, is that they have traps. Why that's important, and I used the wrong trap, so it's really a shame. Why that's important is because traps hit everything that is not immune, and there's very few things that are immune. And when they hit, you get things like this. I used the Confuse trap, so now the Barons, these missile-launching behemoths, are attacking each other, which is pretty funny. Oh, they're definitely harder than Dark Faults. The central control tower is legitimately harder to fight than even some of the most frightening bosses in this game. It's really crazy. And it's just because of how the area is designed. Basically, everything in the area can one-shot you. And if it can't one-shot you, it can do other ridiculous things of the sort. I'm just boss rushing as fast as I possibly can. So I'm not KOing everything. I am KOing some things, because there are other things I could find in the progress of me doing this. But yeah, it's just interesting. But the cool thing about this server, I've never really done too much with it, but I have dabbled every once in a while with friends and so on and so forth. But this server has what is known as Anguish, and I've heard people liken it to a different game. I think maybe Diablo. I'm not too sure, because I've never really been a Diablo fan. But Anguish are difficulties that are beyond Ultimate, that are exclusive to this server. And there's 10 levels of Anguish, and each one increases the difficulty of all the enemies, including the bosses, by a certain degree. So the 10th, to give an idea of this, the 10th level of Anguish makes it such that you are dealing with 5 times more difficult enemies than you would normally on Ultimate. I think this is pretty exploitable, though. It's actually one of the craziest things about this, because you also get more experience points, you have higher drop rates and all that stuff. The reason why I think that this is a bit exploitable, and I'm not really going to complain about it myself, because, you know, a game being breakable is fun to me. It's always been fun to me. But the reason why it's a bit exploitable is because in certain areas and with certain weapons and tactics, you kind of cannot lose. And the central control towers with certain tactics are just like that. This happens to be my favorite boss in the game, and the reason why he is my favorite boss in the game is because he's so easily beaten, cheesed out of his absolute mind. And no, that's not just because I love easy games. It's also because I just love games that are just more fun, just more... They have more options. They have things that you can do to break them open. This is something that's been lost on modern gaming. So, funny you bring that up. Anguish 10 central control towers are one of the areas that doesn't really get any harder. It does. It really and truly does. The enemies do get more difficult. They do have more HP. But if you have the correct strategies, you can go through it. Albeit, it will take much longer to go through it, because at 5 times increased health, you know, enemies are pretty nuts at that point. But if you can go through it, it's basically like cheating. You're just getting a ton of experience points. No-brainer. So that's pretty cool. Confused traps are my favorite. The freeze traps are the most powerful. I'm using a cast. So casts cannot use any magic in this game, which is called techniques. They're called techniques, and it's fire, thunder, ice, light, and dark are your types. They're called other things, but just for the sake of simplicity, you can just call them that. Cast cannot use those, so I don't have the ability to use freezing techniques to freeze my opponents. However, I have something far and away better. I have freeze traps, and freeze traps are just guaranteed as long as they work on that enemy. Some enemies are just literally immune. I don't think anything besides the actual bosses are immune to the traps in Episode 1, but some mini-bosses are immune to them in Episode 2 and 4. And right here, one of the enemies I really want to beat is as many Grand Sorcerers as possible, because they are capable of dropping a weapon I absolutely want. Yeah, so not too long ago, Ashton here watched me play the Central Control Tower, and it was a wild ride, because I was under a wrong impression that you can insta-kill the enemies in the control tower, and you absolutely cannot, because this game does have weapons that allow you to insta-kill. They're all immune to that, and I had no clue. So I went in there absolutely dumbfounded by the absurd difficulty. Oh, you know what? This is what talking will get you sometimes in a stream. I need to be hit. I need max. Let's see. We're going to go Cure Freeze, of course. Heavenly Resist. Heavenly Resist. I need to be hit by this enemy till I have 100 Photon. That'll be very important for the boss. The boss is beatable without a attack and defense increase on this character, because this character is insanely powerful. I've been doing this quest solo since level 112, which is a feat in itself. But oh my gosh, I did it. I did it. I knew I would do it. I knew I would do it. Alright. So that's actually kind of really funny. What I just did is a bit of a hilarious mistake. I went back to Pioneer. I guess I can sell one of you. I don't need all of you. I went back to Pioneer before I don't even know what you're talking about. But I went back to Pioneer before I used my Photon Blast, and because of that, I just wasted my Photon Blast, because anytime you go back to Pioneer, which is the in-game lobby, you lose it all. So I'm going to have to do... Ah, man. This is actually kind of a bit rough. So what I can do is, for a moment, I'm going to sit here and let my Photon Blast build up a little bit. Oh, a feat in itself, as in a difficult task to perform. That's pretty funny. I was not paying attention to that's what you meant in the chat. So this I put on PB Creates. PB Creates you have to be standing still in order to use, but basically they're going to allow me to increase my Photon Blast. I'm not going to wait here forever. It would probably take a good like 3, 4, 5 minutes to, well, maybe not that long, to get my Photon Blast all the way up to maximum. In fact, I actually think this is kind of pointless. But, I don't know. I ruined the Photon Blast. I'm not even going to have my Shift and D-band buffs. So, there is that. This fight is going to take largely much longer than before. So, I'm just going to wait a little bit, kill some time. Eljah here is my highest level character and my favorite to play. So the cool thing about casts is that they are typically the strongest physically. They have the most attack power and the most defense power, but they obviously can't have any mental strength, which is MST. And ATA, which is attack accuracy, is usually low on them as well. Evasive power is kind of low also, and luck is not a stat that you can increase by leveling. You have to add things to your character to increase it. So for this character, he's got some pretty astonishing statistics. He's basically a one-man army, and that's what's so cool about Hucast is just being able to attack and do tons of damage, use traps, and so on and so forth. It is a bit of a shame that you are the only one in the chat at this moment, but sometimes people come in and out of the chat. Hopefully, more people do join. Phantasy Star Online, especially Blue Burst, which most people don't even know is really a thing. Even the people who played Phantasy Star Online back in the day in GameCube or Xbox or Dreamcast typically don't know that there was a PC version, because we're talking about, it was during an era of gaming where the internet wasn't really all that there. So a lot of people just don't know that Phantasy Star Online has a Blue Burst community. Relatively speaking, I think that more people would probably thoroughly love more content on Phantasy Star Online, because I challenge you, if you look up content right now on YouTube, the biggest content creation platform in the world, you're going to hardly ever find absolutely any content on Phantasy Star Online. You're especially not going to find guides or anything of the sort. So I think if I were to do that kind of stuff, I would kind of have a monopoly. Yes, you're right, Mad King. Welcome to, or King Colo, welcome to the chat. You are right. Most people just forget this game exists. And it's kind of a bit of a shame, because like I said, back in the day, you would play it on whatever platform you had it on. You don't really know that it's there. And even if you played it on Blue Burst, the official server shut down in 2007. So it's it's an old antiquated game. But, you know, some people would say, well, you'd get more views if you played more modern games. I'm not just in it for the views. I would like them. I'm not going to, obviously. But I'm also in it to enjoy myself, play my games, the games that I like to play, you know, and enjoy. Otherwise, I'm not really going to enjoy playing a modern game that I just don't like. There are quite a lot of modern games that I would like to play and even stream. Stuff like Marvel Rivals. I'm really thinking that I want to stream that eventually, but it's probably going to have to wait until I get my better PC set up, as I'll be doing that sooner or later. Very cool to see you in the chat. Hopefully you do enjoy. I think I've waited long enough. It's unfortunate because I say I've waited long enough, but realistically, I've not. I'm not going to have Photon Blast, but I also don't want people to just stand here and, you know, stare at nothing. Yeah, so I don't want people to just stare at nothing, so I'm just going to go ahead and get to it. And if this takes a little bit longer to beat this fight, it takes a little bit longer. It would be like if somebody went back and was playing something like Diablo, or Diablo 2, for instance. Not the Resurrected, but the old school Diablo 2. There's a big community of people who would love to see that, who would love that. I think even you've expressed interest, Colo, in wanting to stream stuff like Diablo and Diablo 2 or whatever. I think Diablo 2 is what you said is your favorite game. A lot of people who know about PSO also knew about Diablo 2 back in the day. I remember most of the folks I was friends with in middle school and in high school who knew about the one knew about the other from some kind of experience, this, that, or the other. Yeah, come on, Red Ring. That would be awesome. Very awesome. Alright, so this is Dark Faults. The boss of this episode, the final boss, and kind of a bit of trouble without Shift and D-Band, because Shift and D-Band are the attack and defense increasing buffs that I was going to be able to give myself. I might end up having to use things like star atomizers in this fight, which I don't typically like doing. They're there for emergencies and emergency purposes only, because I do a whole heck of a lot less damage without my attack and defense buff. Which is why I was hoping for my Photon Blast, that yellow ring going around the red ring near my level up there, would be a little bit higher than this, but it's okay. Okay. Oh, he's finished in his second form. Second form is hilariously his hardest form, but he has 3 forms. And the reason why it's his hardest form is because his techniques were given the ability to hit you multiple times. He didn't use any this time because I was able to KO him fast enough, but sometimes he gives you the slip. And the crazy thing is when they hit you multiple times... Alright, when they hit you multiple times, they can kill you, and he has the ability to freeze you as well. So if he freezes you and hits you multiple times, obviously you're just gonna be beaten. Yeah, that was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Misplay, but not in Master Duel. It was in Phantasy Star Online. Not having my Shift and D-Band is just going to make this fight last a whole heck of a lot longer. Which, a lot longer than normal, because, you know, I'm still doing a pretty fair bit of damage. I'm probably going to have to one more cycle. Yep, it's going to be one more cycle. I actually have an add-on in the game that allows me to see what drops on the floor and what drops here, there, and everywhere, and then, like, the just some other statistics, like you can see your bank without having to go to the bank, check all that kind of stuff. Add-ons are pretty numerous for this game, a lot of different mods. It is a multiplayer game that does have an in-game market system, so you can't obviously use cheating mods. They're not cheating. They're typically just stuff that changes appearance and things of that sort. Or, for instance, the floor reader allows you to see what drops on the floor. The importance of the floor reader is so that, like, for instance, if this was a good weapon, my floor reader would tell me that it's a good weapon. It's obviously not, so it didn't show up. What you're seeing right now that I'm hovering over, on the bottom left of my screen saying this is a gladius, which is a sword, is not the floor reader. It is just a regular thing in the game. Guardian armor, 4 slots. Only picking stuff like that up to sell. Being a cast, unfortunately, takes a lot of meseta. Meseta is the actual money in the game. Actual money in PSO. And it takes a lot of meseta because you have to buy healing items. You cannot naturally heal yourself other than standing still. And obviously you can't do that stuff in boss fights. Okay, proof of Sword Saint. Everything is back to being equipped like it should be. I can put the PB Creates back in the bank. I have 2 Scape Dolls. I think that's what I'm going to keep on my person. That was one run. I unfortunately did not get Red Ring this time, but I could next. Who knows? It's definitely not something you get every time you play, or every time you beat Dark Fault, because if that was the case, well, it wouldn't be really valuable. In fact, it would be kind of worthless. My Red Ring, I didn't really show it off for this character, is actually whited. And the reason why, I have the skin White Ring. This server has weapon skins and skins for barriers and other things like that. Just certain high tier stuff, which is pretty cool. I don't really care about it so much, but mine is white because my character has the white section ID, or Whittle. So I decided to just have my red rings match the section IDs of my characters, which is pretty cool. Cool concept. Oh, not episode 2. Gamerman. Always one-person mode if you are playing solo. If you're not playing solo, you are gimping yourself, because what's going to happen is you're actually going to deal with stronger enemies. That's another thing, too, is that on one-person mode, it's basically as if you're playing the game on single player on the old-school GameCube or whatever. But if you're playing in multiplayer mode, whether you have 2, 3, or 4 players, the enemies are equally as powerful. They don't scale with the number of players you have. So the game is balanced in such a way that 2 players can beat the game. Which does mean that if you have 4 competent players, you can kind of breeze through the game. Which is also why they made incredibly difficult areas like the control towers. The control towers I was talking about way earlier in Phantasy Star Online are super incredibly difficult, and the reason being is because they had to make more difficult areas, especially in Episode 4, but also in the control towers, so that you can't just breeze through the areas, even if you do have a bunch of really skilled players, because then it gets boring. You want to have some challenge. And that's just how it is. I could probably beat this relatively very easily on up to Anguish 3 or 4 if I was playing solo like I am right now. The reason why I don't do it, though, is because there are a couple of instances of enemies, or groups of enemies, that are extremely dangerous, and I would just have to skip them altogether. One of those instances is actually in the mines, when you fight the Sinnohs that fall from the ceiling. The ones that I was freezing and using my saber to deal with. I'll show them off in this run. But enemies like that would easily be able to trap me, swarm me, and then KO me. So one of these days I'll probably get into some Anguish stuff and show that off when it is pertinent, but for now I think it's just cool to chill out, be able to talk to chat, not have to stress things, and explain my game. One of my favorite games of all time. Okay, Freeze Trap for you. The Hill Delts are the kind of like mini bosses of the forest. They're not really, though. They're just bigger, tougher enemies. Mini bosses typically have special properties that make them large and by far different than other enemies in the game. Like, for instance, immunities. They'll have immunities or extremely high resistances to certain techniques or attacks. Or they'll have invulnerability periods or other things of that sort. Just let the Sill Dragon come over here. You can see the beautiful northern lights in Phantasy Star Online. Alright, Sill Dragon. Get ready to meet your doom. And the Sill Dragon is down. I think what I get from him here is his claw is his drop. I think. I'm not too sure on that one. If it is, it's super passable. It's not something that is really worth anything at all, really. Power material, pretty good. Heal up just a little bit. Always good if you're playing a cast, especially because you have limited inventory slots. I don't keep anything other than Trimates and Star Atomizers, which are healing items, on me. But there are Dimates and Monomates. I don't keep those on me, but I will pick those up during quests and other things of that sort, because then I can just use those to heal up. Monomates heal a fixed amount depending on your difficulty. Dimates heal quite a bit more than that, but it's a fixed amount depending on your difficulty. Trimates fully heal you, and Star Atomizers fully heal you and all your teammates that are near. I only keep Star Atomizers on this character because they're basically an extension of Trimates. But I try not to use them because they each cost 5,000 Meseta apiece, whereas Trimates only cost 2,000 Meseta apiece. And 5,000 is quite a bit more than 2,000. Let me just throw that out there. It doesn't really matter either way. I've got so much Meseta that I could blow through Star Atomizers like they're candy. But I'm not very wasteful, so that's just how that goes. The caves is a very fun area in this quest to do because most of the enemies are clustered automatically like this. And if they're clustered, you can get really good advantage out of certain weapons just being able to hit them all. And it's fun. It's very satisfying. The more enemies you hit with your weapons, the more satisfying it is. There are some quests that are so brutal, it's insane. They'll have like dozens of enemies on screen at a single time, coming at you at a single time. And then you really do have to use the big beefy weapons and try to hit as many of them as you possibly can. And that's a challenge, but it's also really fun. Alright. Put up a telepipe. That allows you to go back to Pioneer. I'm not going to use that at this time. It's just in case I were to die in this fight, I could use the pipe to get back to him as soon as possible. The Caves boss is not really a threat, but he is capable of killing me because I do sacrifice my HP in order to do damage to him. And quite a lot of HP, but it's very worth it. Alright. And this right here is one of my favorite weapons in the game. It is called the Dark Flow. It's actually a boss weapon from Episode 2. It's extremely powerful. and extremely unique. Nothing else in the game acts like it. Yep, that's where he is defeated. Darulai is dead. Dead on arrival. Awesome. Breaking the boxes is very important. Typically, if you're playing in Phantasy Star Online, you're going to kind of really get acquainted to all the ins and outs of the game, especially if you've had as much time into it as I have. And one of the things you'll know is that boxes are better in the later areas of PSO. So each and every area has a set number of areas. So Forest, for instance, has 2 areas plus the boss, so technically 3. Caves has 3 areas, then the boss, so technically 4. Mines has 2, and then the boss. And then Ruins has 3, and then the boss. So the interesting thing about it is you actually want to open up boxes in different areas for different stuff. And if you go to like Ruins 3, you'll have a better chance at getting certain items and better items. That's why in most of the boss rush quests, like this quest, you only really have boxes at the end of defeating the bosses, which is a bit of a shame. It makes balancing sense, but the reason why that is because the bosses don't have the best loot from the boxes. You still want to open them though, and especially have a floor reader. This is something I did not have until a couple of years ago. But the reason why the floor reader is so darn good is because I don't have to check the weapons on the floor individually to see if they're good. That just takes up time. It wastes time. It's utterly pointless. It's not something that I enjoy. There's probably a lot of people who would, but the floor reader is just a quicker and more streamlined way of making sure I find something. A couple of years back, me and my brothers were playing a bunch of quests in the mines because I thoroughly enjoy the mines, and I found a gun that had an 85 increase to its accuracy, and it happened to be a demon's gun. Demons reduces health of an enemy down to 1/4 each and every one of the special attack hits. What's crazy about that is that weapon, if it had no increase in its attack accuracy, would be literally worthless, but I was able to sell it for 300 photon drops. So it was super, super nice. And I would have never found something like that, or even bothered to look at it or try to pick it up if I was playing the game without a floor reader. The reason why this is because you have a limited inventory space of only 30 spaces, and this does include everything. This includes your weapons, all of your gear, and then any of your healing items or other things like that you bring along. So obviously it would be extremely time consuming to pick up every single item in the game that you come across and try to decipher what it is or if it's any good. That's definitely not something I would want to do personally. Baby? You gonna comment in the chat? That's what I was trying to say earlier. When? I didn't see it. It's not there.
Oh my gosh.
It never sent. Alright, just had to take a little sip. Alright, now I am back. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Hey, it's X. Have you been watching the whole time? Alright, so here, each one of the towers of this boss, there is, what, 6 towers? Yeah, each one of the towers are one shot by my special combo here if I have an attack and defense buff. And then you sort of have to play a guessing game. It's kind of like Russian roulette and figure out which tower is the correct tower. You want the red one, of course, and then you can fight the other ones afterwards. But what I mean by Russian roulette is I pick like a section and I stare at it till they come out. And sometimes I guess it right, and it happens to be just that one. Sometimes I guess it quite wrong. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Definitely did not mean to waste 2 star atomizers right there. That's a funny thing about star atomizers. You can actually, they're the only healing item in the game that you can use without being damaged, and the reason why that is because their secondary function is being able to heal your teammates. So that was a bit of a waste. I pressed the wrong button. I actually have my controller completely mapped. This is a PC game, and natively PSO on the PC does not have function to be played with a controller, but the server I play on does have an additive function of that, and if you want more than that to be able to play with the full range of everything, including your hotbar on your controller and mapping all that stuff, you do have to get an external program. Yeah, that's I don't know exactly about all that much about chat settings. I do know that there's really weird things that YouTube and other streaming services and sites do kind of weirdly from or differently from one another. I do also know that my stream has a delay. I think it's about a minute delay. I set it a long time ago to that when I was streaming originally, and it's probably something it's worth keeping, because if I were to ever do stuff like streaming Master Duel, which I would love to do, I would absolutely be all for people joining me and fighting me, dueling me on Master Duel. If I were to do that, I welcome anybody when that does happen. But obviously it wouldn't be any good if there was no delay. And that's the original reason why I put a delay, was just future proofing and thinking about like what I'm going to do with other things later on down the road. Yeah, this game was not originally for GameCube. It was originally for Dreamcast. GameCube and Xbox were afterwards, and PC I think came out after those two. Back in the day, when this was on PC, people weren't really playing PC games with controllers. So that's the reason why, even though this game was originally for console gaming, it did not have native functionality with controllers, and it really just does not have it. If you play on some other servers, it's impossible without an external program tricking your console in order to, or tricking your PC in order for you to play it with a controller. Yeah, these guys are a little bit rough, the Chaos Bringers, or Dark Bringers, but I got them beat. Okay. Yep, there's a mine material here again. Hilariously, I did it again. I'm supposed to allow the Darkbringers to hit me enough so that I get to 100 Photon. But now I'm at 100 Photon, so it's all good. I'm going to actually have Photon Blast for this fight, which is good. That's what I wanted originally. So the boss fight will go by a heck of a lot smoother. Yeah, the Chaos Bringers are the enemies from the earlier difficulties. On Ultimate, Episode 1 particularly, the enemies are changed. They're buffed. They look totally different. I don't actually need or want this Belra's right arm, so I'm not going to bother with it. I do have to go to the bank and the shop and everything, so I can stock up real quick. So I didn't make the mistake this time. You absolutely have to use your Photon Blast before you teleport back, and then you'll keep it. So this time, I actually did not make a mistake and do have my Photon Blast for the boss fight. You can see in the right-hand side of my screen, it says S and D. That's Shifta and D-Band, level 21, and I have 3 minutes and 49 seconds left of both of those, which should be more than enough time. Typically, I beat him with about a minute to spare. So one can hope that that's exactly what happens here. I do have my Cure Freeze and my Heavenly Resist on. Cure Freeze obviously keeps me from being frozen, and this boss can freeze you in both of its first and second forms. And he has very high technique damage, so the Heavenly Resist give me the ability to resist that damage and not take so much from him, because he's kind of really a pain, especially in his second form. It's interesting because you would think his final form would be the most difficult, and that is absolutely the case on the previous difficulties, but that is not the case in Ultimate. I think I only have to shoot 1 or 2 more. Yep, there we go. There's a limited number of those you have to shoot depending on how many players you have in your party, and then it starts the first phase of the boss. So here, if I have Shifta and D-Band, I sometimes 2-combo him, but in that case it was just a hair away from 2-comboing him, and that's every single one of his forms. Even his third form. The problem with his third form is that he's very elusive, and when he goes into that, like, mirrored form, he's actually invincible to physical damage. So obviously I can't hit him when he's doing that. And then this one is very elusive because he likes running around. So when he's running around, you can't really do anything about it. I love it when he decides to do his Earthquake attack, which will slow you unless you are a cast for some reason. And the reason why I love that is because it means he's going to sit there for quite a while. You get some attacks in on him. The optimal thing to do would be for me to start with my handgun, not the mech guns, because I'm using my dual-wield mech guns here. But the handgun, which is what I'm using right now, if I could start Phase 3 with the handgun instead, it would be more optimal because of the distance. The mech guns have very, very minuscule range. Oh my gosh, I almost one-cycled him. Very hard to do, especially on solo. Those are also quite hard to dodge. And there we go. He is finished for the second time this stream. As you can see, very, very unfortunate. My character is supposed to be named Eljah, but I missed the I. But that's just how that goes. I still call him Eljah, but he does not have that as his actual name. Alright, hopefully I get some stuff. I did not drop the red ring. It would pop up. There would be some kind of reaction out of it, that's for sure. Alright. Now I can go ahead, go back and sell everything I got that I don't need, of course, and get ready for yet another battle. I'm pretty decked out. This character is pretty much in no need of anything himself. I've been playing this for many years on this server. I've actually had many more than the 4 characters I originally said I have, but I have since moved away from the majority of my characters and only play with the 4 that I have now. And the reason why that is because eventually I just realized something. This is a single-player game. I might as well play with the best of the best. One thing that I've always struggled with games, multiplayer, single-player games, whatever, is I cannot get over using something like meta. I just won't use meta. So, for instance, in Yu-Gi-Oh, I have done my absolute best, my darndest, to make sure that I can build cards and decks and archetypes that aren't meta but can still function against the meta. And it's kind of that way here in PSO. For years and years, I scoffed at the meta. And the meta is basically, if you're going to play solo, the best characters are Hucast and Ramar and Rawcast. And I would never use them. I would just refused. And then I realized, why am I doing that to myself? I'm literally playing a single-player game. I did not get Red Ring. Nope, I did not there. You did miss out for a little bit. But it's okay. I'm probably going to do a few more runs, so it's A-okay. I thought about maybe doing, like I said, doing other quests, and I could potentially do other quests for, like, future installments. But this really is the fastest way to get the Red Ring. And even if it is kind of samey to do something over and over again, it's whatever. There are so many different ways to play this game. And with all of the stuff I am going to be hunting, eventually I'm going to have streams for all kinds of stuff in all kinds of different areas, facing different enemies, this, that, and the other. So I figured, just to start things off, I'm going to just play something simple, Towards the Future. Most iconic quest in all of Phantasy Star Online, except for maybe Central Dome Fire Swirl. I am very glad you are enjoying the stream and watching. This game is pretty new to you. I think there was a time where I was trying to convince you. I still want you to play, by the way. Absolutely want you to play. I was trying to convince you to play, but you were saying it's too hard and the aiming was too difficult and you weren't used to it because you don't play games like this. You're too slow. Are you saying you're too slow or the game's too slow? I encourage everybody to get on the game. The game is not too slow. Oh my gosh, you are in the easiest difficulty. The game is supposed to be slower on the easiest difficulty because you can't handle it. But yeah, I encourage everybody. If you have a computer, if you have the capacity to play pretty much anything on your computer, I don't even care if you have a notebook computer, you need to get on PSO. If you want a recommendation for a server, I could do that as well. I play on Athenia. There is other servers like Ultima. If anybody asks, I could put that either in the chat or probably in a pinned comment. I personally recommend Athenia because even though the other servers have their own options that they give to you and their own benefits and drawbacks and stuff like that, I play on Athenia, so if you wanted to play with me, that's obviously where you would have to be. I don't play on the others. Yeah, the game doesn't really have... So, the learning curve in this game is nowhere near as difficult as it first appears. So, this stream is kind of a bit disingenuous in the fact that I'm coming into the stream hunting for weapons and items that are late game. And I mean very late game stuff. With a character that's almost max leveled and max statted and everything like that. So this is going to be very disingenuous in the sense that what you're going to see here and all of the stuff that I'm doing is going to look complicated, fast, or even a bit difficult or challenging to some, but it's really not, because the game starts you off in the easiest difficulty, which is called normal. Then you go to hard, very hard, and ultimate. And in normal, the game is super slow. The enemies are incredibly slow. This is actually what Hey It's X was talking about, is that the game is too slow for her. She wants a faster game, but I told her, if we, grind into ultimate and get her to the point where she's at levels comparable to my characters, she wouldn't think that anymore. That's for sure. Yeah, ultimate gives a permanent couple of boosts that Ephenia does not. The reason why I play Ephenia is because I think that having events at times of the year that give you the opportunity to gain more experience points, gain better items and stuff like that, and then also there's weekly boosts in this. So you don't have a permanent daily boost, but you do have different weekly boosts. Like for instance, right now the current weekly boost is drop rate for regular items. So stuff like power materials, mine materials, things like that, grinders to increase the strength of your weapons. Those are more readily accessible right now. I actually think that also counts for photon drops, so you find photon drops more easily. There is one weekly boost for experience points gain. There's a weekly boost for rare drop rates, and then other stuff like that. And then there's rare enemies, because there are enemies that are just very hard to come by. And for me, I think that having the changed up weekly boost and the event boosts and what Ephenia offers to the table, because Ephenia offers a lot. It is very compatible with a lot of plugins, add-ons, other stuff that are legit. You do have to be playing as legit stuff, so on and so forth. Only thing I don't really like about Ephenia is I don't like some of the politics behind some of the server rules and some of the concepts behind, what they will and will not tell you that you can and cannot have on your Discord profile. I had some problems with that a few years ago. Other than that, I think Ephenia is pretty fantastic. And there's a lot of active players on the server. I think between 500 and 1,000 active players, which is a pretty good amount. Yep, rare enemies are 1 in 512. Are you, by chance, looking up this stuff on the Ephenia wiki? That's another thing that's really cool, is that Phantasy Star Online does have a wiki for it. It's called PSO World. However, it's very hit or miss on its data. It's also very old and outdated and hasn't been updated in years. Literal years. So Ephenia is a bit different than that. They have a pretty active updating basis concerning the Ephenia wiki. And they have their own drop charts because they have changed different drop rates for things and stuff of that sort. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. There's pluses and minuses. I think Ultima is probably better for the fan who wants to go and just hit level 200 as fast as possible, especially if you played on GameCube and Dreamcast and you never got to that degree of levels because it's extremely hard to do. So you could get that much faster on Ultima, but I don't know. I think it robs the experience a little bit. These types of games are for the long haul. You're grinding. You're playing forever, Okay, that's cool. It's probably stuff that, you picked up over the years. That's pretty awesome that you didn't have to look any of the stuff up. There's nothing wrong with looking up stuff either, because there's plenty of things I don't know. Like, you're not going to know everything about every game to a complete and total degree. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that there's still options. I also love that the community has basically banded together to make sure that there are servers that are still up for people to play this very ancient MMORPG. If I had the money behind it, if I had the following, the community on my channel, I would build my own server. I would 1000% build my own server. And the reason why is because then it would be a server to my taste, likings, and my own considerations of what I would like to do to make the game my own way. I think that that would be very cool. The problem is I don't know anything about coding, and I don't have a following or a big community. So that's not something that is within reasonable reach, unfortunately. Yeah, this game is pretty ancient. For an MMO, I'm pretty sure this is the oldest MMORPG ever. I think it's the very first one that ever existed. So it's pretty ancient. It came out on Dreamcast in either 96 or 98. Cannot quote me on that. And it had online from the very beginning. Now, the online on the consoles were pretty bad. You had to pay like a monthly subscription fee, and it was like $10+ a month to play this game. Subscription fees are for the birds. I don't even have TV because I don't think... Like, I have TVs. I'll always have TVs. But I don't have cable or anything of the sort because I think subscription services are for the birds. If you want them, that's perfectly fine. I don't. Was it Neverwinter? Are you sure about that? Like, I'm not calling you a fibber or anything here, but I don't remember. The only reason why I'm saying this is because I don't remember the exact year or date that PSO for the Dreamcast came out. I mean, you could be totally right, but I just don't know. All right. But yeah, either way, even if it's not the first, it is definitely one of the first. Because we're talking about like mid to late 90s is when this came out, and it had internet from the very start. Which is kind of a wacky concept. Oh, 91. That's interesting. I think GameCube PSO was 2000. I'm almost 100% certain that Dreamcast was in the 90s. Especially for version 1. Because version 1 came out like a year or two before version 2 came out. And I know that version 2 came out like 2 or 3 years before GameCube's. Something like that. I might be wrong on my timelines, like I said. I'm not trying to just be, ridiculous here, but that is from my memory. Alright, just gotta wait for the towers. These ones, I cannot get the blue ones before they go down without having shift and D-band, because I just don't do enough damage. But yeah, that's cool if Neverwinter is the very first one. 91 is kind of crazy. I did not think that there were MMOs at that period. That's kind of very interesting to me. Alright, I still have 3 towers to go. One tower left. Yeah, I've never played Neverwinter. I know that RuneScape is also pretty old, but I could not tell you when that came out exactly. And I think Fable was another really old one too. Fable, maybe. I could be thinking about something else or whatever, but yeah, something to that extent. Where it's still one of. guy's gonna make me use 2 Trimates. Okay, RuneScape was 2001. Yeah, the problem with Phantasy Star Online is you do have to look it up by version, like Dreamcast version. Like which one it is, so on and so forth. But that's pretty cool. Either way, like, I've never heard of Neverwinter. Well, no, I take that back. I have heard of Neverwinter. I actually had a couple of friends who played it back in the day. I've never played it, is what I should say in for that example. How do I already have a full inventory? Wow. Pretty crazy. Yeah, RuneScape was 2001. I remember that being a huge thing. All of my friends and family really loved RuneScape. The only thing I ever did on RuneScape myself was I just made huge farms and grew potatoes until the cows came home. Got pretty rich for just doing that on that game, and then called it quits. I only played RuneScape probably a year or two. It was just not something I truly interested me at the time. It's still kind of not something that interests me. I don't really like top-down MMOs. It's why I'm playing PSO over something like that. I think top-downs are... It's a weird thing for me. I think one of the reasons why this is because I'm legally blind, so my issue with top-downs is it's hard to see things. Even in PSO, sometimes it's hard for me to see things. I'm playing on a laptop with multiple screens set up in my one monitor so that I can keep track of chat, my streaming, as well as the actual game. And doing that on one monitor is pretty rough. Especially, you know, because I am legally blind. Back when I was much younger, when my family first got really into handheld video games, my siblings we all got Game Boy Colors, I think it was. But the problem was it was so small that I ended up getting discouraged and not playing. So I never played the original Pokemon during its heyday. I actually didn't start with my entry into Pokemon until the Game Boy Advance SP, and then I retroactively went back and played those entries. But that's just my original experience. 2003 was when I got PSO for GameCube. That was back when we were living in good old Kentucky. It was a good time back then. It was, that was when I jump-started getting into Smash, as well as getting into Fire Emblem, and pretty much all of the major series that I thoroughly enjoy today. I got into then. I mean, we did have games before then. We actually had a Super Nintendo, and my dad, and I think we even had a PlayStation 1 at the time I had a GameCube. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct. But the first thing we had was Super Nintendo, and I thoroughly loved watching my dad play. He would and could beat a Link to the Past without dying. And then he could beat Super Ghouls and Ghosts without dying. I am really thinking about getting a Switch too. So Nintendo is kind of... Oh, man. Man, they're kind of on my hit list right now. I kind of really... I was one of the biggest proponents of the Nintendo Switch 2, or Nintendo Switch, the first one, since its inception. because I love it. I love the idea of a handheld, hybrid, portable console, all this kind of stuff, and then everything that the Switch can do. It's wild to me that so many people down it, and I really think it's an envy or jealousy thing. I really do. People look at that and go, oh man, my darn PlayStation 5 barely sold like a quarter what the Switch is selling, so therefore I hate it. I really think that that's the number one issue with the Switch 1, is that people just hated it for the sake of hating it, and because they didn't like Nintendo being on top. But, and I was a huge proponent of them, but then there's a problem, right? Nintendo let the pride of it go to their head. And the Switch 2 is coming out has come out in an absolute abysmal pricing range for games, for the console, especially given the fact that they are selling the darn console for $120 cheaper in Japan, because Japan's money is not doing so well. Well, neither is many of the other places you're charging $600, $700, $800 for. Crazy, isn't that? America, we think we've got it bad, paying $450 for the thing. There are some countries literally paying almost $1,000 for a Switch 2, which I think is just utterly abysmal. But aside from that and some of their rejected end-user agreement ideas that they've got going on, I do fully plan to get Switch 2s. A Switch 2, because I think it would be cool. I like it. I like some of the games coming to it. I really want to get into Metroid Prime 4. I really want to check out Mario Kart World. Obviously, Pokemon Legends ZA is going to be way better. And then I saw how good Pokemon Scarlet and Violet run. Now, they still look like crap because they have zero art direction. But I saw how good they run on the Switch 2, and I was absolutely blown away. Like, the fact that they are so disgustingly abysmal, just so abysmal, on the original Switch, and then they go to being something virtually totally different in at least performance concerning the Switch 2, that sold me on that kind of concept. Of course, I still do have some gripes with it, but by and large, I'm going to get a Switch 2, and then you can expect to see me stream and play games on a Switch 2 on my good old channel. I eventually do want to make sure that I am streaming stuff like Switch 2 content and Switch content, whatever. I just cannot at this current moment because I am temporarily living overseas and did not bring my Switch. I did bring my Switch. I did not bring my capture card for my Switch. So I'm not capable of capturing the gameplay footage. Unfortunate, but it's whatever. I didn't really think that I was going to be here this long, because I've been here already a year coming this August. In the good old Philippines. Beautiful country. Absolutely beautiful over here. Wonderful folks. Good Christian culture. Very inviting. Very kind folk. Especially to foreigners. Especially in many, touristy places, obviously. But me and my fiance are living large in the good old Philippines in a beautiful apartment. And I just enjoy that. So whenever I do eventually come back to the States and get her back to the States, I will be going back to streaming content for my other consoles that I possess on my channel as well. Eventually, I would like to look into getting original consoles. Oh, of course, I love the Philippines. I think this is a wonderful country, one of the best countries on the face of the earth. And I say that with all sincerity and truth. Now, pretty much no country beats America, but that could just be my patriotism speaking. But yeah, that's 3 runs so far? Pretty cool. But further on with the Switch 2 conversation, I think probably the best game on the Switch 2 is going to be the Metroid Prime 4. I am so absolutely excited for that. I really and sincerely hope. I have no proof of this, no clue of this. None of us do at this current moment. But I really and sincerely hope that Metroid Prime 4 is a multiplayer shooter on the levels of Call of Duty. Because I really would love for a multiplayer shooter to dethrone Call of Duty. Kill it, in fact. Because these big, humongous companies don't need to keep getting bigger and more bloated and more exploitative. And yes, I do know I am speaking about Nintendo. They're doing some pretty stupid things at this current moment. And they also don't need to have things go to their head either. So that could be considered a hypocritical statement. I kind of really don't care because at this point, well, Call of Duty is a dead series, whereas Metroid isn't a ruined and dead series. So even though Nintendo is doing some pretty shady stuff, Metroid Prime at this current moment is not. So I cannot wait to see how the performance of Smash Ultimate runs on the Switch 2 as well. Because it runs beautifully on the Switch, but there is the problem of the character skins taking a while to load in. The characters don't, but the skins do, especially towards the bottom, because they load from the top to the bottom. I wonder if that's either fixed or just not really an issue whatsoever in the Switch 2. Not something I've seen anybody reference so far, because I don't think I've seen anybody go back and play Switch 2 with the Smash Ultimate to see if it did increase any of the performance. I'm actually very excited about that. That's one of those games that was hard-pressed to always run at 60 FPS. There are times where you can force the game to dip, but you actually have to be doing stuff to force the game to dip. It has to run at 60 because it's a high-octane, party fighter. I'm just super excited about that. Smash Ultimate is also one of my favorite games of all time. I don't think there is a Smash game that compares or a fighting game that compares. Of course, this is my opinion. Disclaimer. And I think you like Smash Ultimate as well. Hey, it's X. Pretty sure you thoroughly love that game, if I'm not mistaken. That's something I could eventually see about doing, especially if there is still an online competitive scene for Smash Ultimate. I could see myself getting on and maybe doing streams of that stuff too. I'm not anywhere near what people would call a best or a crazy good player. I like to think I'm pretty decent, and I like to think that I can hang with, maybe above average players. So there is that potential. I'm definitely not any way, shape, or form in the competitive scene of Smash. I know about it. I know how to do it. Most of it, teching, all that kind of stuff, wave dashing, so on and so forth. But that's because I've been in the Smash competitive scene previously with Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Brawl, not Ultimate. But that was a heck of a long time ago. Back then, I mained Ganondorf, and that was a fun time. The Sill Dragon is yet again gonna taste the wrath of my good old Dark Flow sword. Hurry up, dude. Get on up here. And nothing dropped from him except for some Maceta. So Maceta is always dropped as the yellow crystal looking things. The green boxes are healing items and items that you can use. The orange boxes are weapons. The blue boxes are armor. And then red boxes are legendary weapons, items, and armor. I have had one legendary drop in this run so far. It was a Belra's right arm. It's actually an enemy part weapon you can turn into a weapon. It turns into kind of like a missile launcher. It's not very good. I already have plenty of them. They don't sell for anything, so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to pass up on it. Kind of silly, to pass up on something that's considered legendary. But if it's not good, or if you don't need it or want it, what are you going to do with it? Defense material. I pick up this stuff occasionally to sell. Actually, I'm kind of picking up all of my materials so that X over here, when she gets on and starts playing on Phantasy Star Online, I can help her become as powerful as she needs to be so we can breeze through areas. Because I think you would much more like the pace of the game if we were to get to a point where you're in the higher difficulties. I believe you would love it. You can be kind of shy about that all you want, but I believe you would absolutely love Phantasy Star Online. Besides, this is an up to 4-player game, and I would love it to be able to stream me and 3 other players playing, doing other quests and things of the sort, and would love to have some company just in my regular playing. Typically, I play solo. I don't play with randos in the server, but you absolutely can. Yes, maybe very soon. You are getting a very good laptop soon, from what I hear. Alright, time to beat the boss of the caves. Yeah, I know you've said on a couple of occasions that you're super excited about it. I could see why, especially if you've never had anything to the extent of a good gaming PC. It's a totally brand new experience. I really think that aside from the original Switch, because I love handheld gaming, if you're going to play video games, I think the best way to get into playing video games is PC. Not because I think that Steam or anything like that is particularly good. I actually kind of... don't tell Nintendo this, everybody. Shh. I actually kind of prefer emulation over pretty much anything else. There's nothing illegal about it. You can absolutely emulate. But they have to be ROMs that you own, which I own all of my ROMs. So just don't tell Nintendo, everybody. And everything will be A-OK. But yeah, I way far and away prefer emulation. I'll play, a free-to-play game that's good from here, to there. I love Master Duel. I typically play that more so on my phone than I do on the computer, because, you can play it literally anywhere you have internet, which is pretty fun. I also play it on the Switch occasionally. And then stuff like Marvel Rivals came out and just blew games out of the water like Overwatch. I cannot believe that a hero shooter came out, and it is, in the modern day, it's not exploitative, it's not shop heavy, you don't get ads in your face, it's very fun. Now, there are some problems with the matchmaking, I'll throw that out there. It's very fun, and the characters are interesting, and all the content is just free, and it's good content. If more free-to-play games were of the mind of not being so predatory, I would probably be more open to free-to-play games. I'll throw that out there. But I grew up in an era where video games were a one-time purchase. You bought them, you got them physical, you played them, they had intrinsic value because you could sell them, physical copies. Everything wasn't just, digital this and storefront that, and my game has a shop in it because it's no longer a video game, it's a way to squeeze money out of you. But games like Master Duel, even though you can buy stuff, you can put your money in it. Games like even Roblox, or you have Marvel Rivals in the case that I'm talking about. These games, they're not really exploitative. They're not really predatory. And that's what I I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a free-to-play game that doesn't, it's not up in your face. And I'm well aware, too, that these games are free-to-play, so obviously they have to make their money somehow. But you can make money without poor business. This is crazy. I know this is going to be, crazy to hear, but you can make money without being a con man. And being exploitative, being predatory makes you a con man. Alright, I am slowed. I forget. Oh, okay. My soul atomizers, my ability to heal my status conditions, which that was one, is up on my right analog stick. That's where I have it mapped. No shift and D-band. It's kind of a crapshoot. I think at maximum mag power, which your mag is your little helper, those are the wings on my back. Max mag power, synchro, whatever you want to call it. The mag only has like a 30% chance to proc. The shift and D-band, it might be more than that, but I can't remember exactly. It's irrelevant. Either way, I don't have it, and I just have to take an extra shot to KO. I missed the pillar. To KO the pillars. So it's whatever. Nice. And if this pillar comes up and it is red, you do want to hit the red pillars and kill them as soon as you possibly can, because it fries the circuitry of the boss, because he is a robot, an AI system, actually, which is pretty interesting. And then he cannot attack you. And that's the reason why the first phase is so easy. There's actually a way to super cheese him with certain weapons by hitting his screens. You can lock his screens in position, and then he's incapable of attacking you at all, or moving, or even raising the pillars. Which is, a lot of fun. Some people would say the fight's boring. I've heard that argument a lot. Especially the more you get involved with the Phantasy Star Online community. I don't tend to agree. Because again, I think games were funner in a day where you kind of had more agency in them to do kind of like cheesy things or strategies and figure stuff out and break the game. It's one of the reasons why I love games like Thracia. I bring that game up all the time, but the crazy reason why I do is because the game gives you agency. And how it does is if you figure stuff out, what you're doing, you can take advantage of the game. The game has incentive for you to play the game over and over again, to learn the mechanics so that you can get better, and then you can just beat the game easier each and every time you play it. You get better and better and better at the game, which is just so interesting. Games with cheesable mechanics, or like hidden mechanics, or hidden secrets and cheat codes, that was the days, man. That's just not something that happens anymore. And the reason why it doesn't is because, I don't know, it was like the whole zeitgeist of gamers just decided we don't, or I should say game developers, all decided together we don't like making games like that anymore. Which is weird, because gamers still love that. Absolutely still love that. You look at like the cheating issue in video games, and you see how rampant it is. And you can tell from straight out the gate that people still want that outlet. They still want an outlet to cheat in games. And that's a huge argument, because a lot of people will say, well, cheaters ruin the game for everybody. And, I mean, in multiplayer games, I will absolutely agree. I will absolutely agree with that. But I really think that because folks like that have zero outlet for that kind of desire, because, you know, video games are not reality, crazy enough for some people to understand that. Because they're not reality, and nor should they be your entire life, you know, hobbies as they are, it's just kind of weird to me that something as simple as cheating has been totally alienated and has been made to look like it's just some objectively morally evil thing, when, again, it's just a video game, A, and B, these people once had an outlet that they no longer have in the games themselves. So I'm of the opinion that if those outlets were still there, people wouldn't be as apt to doing it. I'm not saying it would go away, and I'm not saying that cheaters who cheat, especially in online games, shouldn't be punished. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying that if there was an outlet for it, because there's nothing immoral about it in the first place, I think more people would get away from cheating in games themselves. And that wouldn't be so much of a problem. That's just my theory, a game theory, if you will. Time to use my Photon Blast, go back to Pioneer. This will probably be... Ah, man, I might do another go. Maybe one more go, I'm not sure. This might be my last run. And if that's the case, this will be my last fight with faults. Okay. Time to sell and buy. Alright, I'm ready. Dark Faults is not ready for this. 4 minutes left of my power. You cannot use a telepipe in this area, which is the reason why I use it in that hallway before you enter the boss teleporter. And the reason why is because this counts as the boss's stage, and you cannot use teleporters or traps in the boss's stages. It's literally not even possible to use a trap. So it's not only that the bosses are immune to it, but it's not possible to be done. Most bosses are also just immune to all status afflictions anyway. There are instances where the helpers of a boss, like these spinners, are affected by status ailments, so you can actually freeze those. It's actually super intelligent to do that if you are a force, which is one of the technique casting characters in the game. I am not, though. I am a cast, which is hilarious, because you'd think a cast would be able to cast techniques. Cast is just another word for android or robot. It's a very old descriptor for that, like a cast, a die cast, or a cast of a component or mechanical piece. That's basically what it is. Nice, you missed me. Alright, Faults. Faults' second form is defeated. Now it's just his final form. Good damage, good damage. Yes, I one-cycled him. Awesome. Come on, Red Ring, drop for me. That would be awesome. Four markers for 4 people would be awesome. to get some, like I said before, would be awesome to get some more people playing PSO in my streams. Definitely going to do that soon, hopefully. Unfortunately, that is no red ring. That is a-okay, because there will be more instances of me streaming this game and looking towards some more fighting of Dark Vaults and so on and so forth. Probably the next time I stream Phantasy Star Online, I'll do something a little bit different. I'll still hunt for Red Ring, I'll just take on a different quest or a different avenue of getting to the boss. Typically, I don't pick up the question mark weapons because the question mark weapons have to be teched or unquestion marked by the techer character in order to know what it is fully, and it just wastes time because then you have to tech it in order to sell it first. It's kind of like a silly non-issue, but it is something that I consider, and that's why I don't do it anymore. And yep, I'm gonna go ahead and throw away into my bank all of that stuff I no longer need it at this time. So, y'all, this will unfortunately be, that was the last of my runs for the day. Could have been better. I could have gotten a red ring, but like I said, this is not something that you just immediately get. I have fought him many times since the last time I got a red ring, so I actually think it's going to be sometime very soon. I am going to have another red ring drop, hopefully. And that would be pretty cool, but it is a 1 out of 186 chance from that boss. We're not talking about great odds here. We're not talking about 50%. You know, it's not you know, a shot in the barn. It's more like a shot in the dark. S rank, another escape doll. And yeah, so that was Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst Towards the Future quest with my character Eljah. And this was my first stream hunting for Red Ring. I really do hope that you all enjoyed it. I'm so very glad for all the folks that commented. It was very fun chatting back and forth and being able to, you know, express my opinions about not only the game at large, but also other games of history, other things of that sort. Switch 2 and speculation concerning whether or not I was going to get that, and now you all know it will be a feature of this channel at some time coming to a screen near you. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like my content, please upvote and follow, or like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and while you're at it, have a great and glorious day gaming. Yes, hey, it's X. Till next stream. I'll see you all later. I